and I was back in school getting my pre-med requirements because you need them whether you go to nursing or physician's assistant. So I was doing kind of all of that. And in the world of continuing, being in hospitals and all, seeing like all the impacts of healthcare and all the regulations and how they affect your quality of care. I was still very much a leftist at that time. That was the other thing. Like when I went to college, I was surrounded by hardcore leftists, and and I became one, and I identified myself as a socialist and a Marxist, and I was really in that world. And I had even traveled to Cuba, which is it's a beautiful place. The people are wonderful, but it was really a shock because of the contradiction in my head of what I was told of this socialist paradise and what you see in reality. And so that was kind of just like things that were accumulating, and my experiences just, as I got older and got married and had children, and being in the public health, quote unquote, public health system, and being in public education. I went to a public university. Now I can really step back and see how much indoctrination, how much silencing there is for people, especially in in the university system, who have a diversity of ideas. You really don't even get to hear them. And in my time, I really thought that the predominant messaging was right wing, but I was wrong. I was surrounded by very extreme, like left wing professors who were really kind of beginning to put that into so much of the curriculum. And now it's completely even more so. But then it didn't seem like it, but it really was to me. But yeah, so in the healthcare system, having that experience of this very type of authoritarian top-down approaches to just for women giving birth, like how you're supposed to do it when you're in the hospital, and you're limited in choices. So I became an advocate for home birth, because I was just like, this is the most natural process, and 99% of the time, if you allow yourself to experience it naturally, there's really no complications. And thankfully, yes, we have people who are trained, who are able to take care of those emergency situations. But if you're not in that setting where they're setting you up for it, the likelihood that you're going to have a very successful natural birth is greater if you just stay in your house and you're able to do that with, certified midwife. But yeah, so kind of all of these experiences were really getting me to challenge my mindset, because I was very much, I'm stubborn. So that's very hard. But when you are surrounded by the, how would I say it, with that echo chamber, it's really hard to break out of that. And very much so in that environment, and I was, I wasn't in like a communist party, but I was surrounded by people who were in communist parties, and who were in different organizations that were really out there recruiting for that. I was more with people who were Black Panthers, people who were Young Lords, people who were involved in the anti-war movement from the left, and those young people movements who were older and who were still community activists, and they were doing a lot of good work. And that's the people that I was working with, but they were still, they were trained Marxists, and, or at one time, some of them still advocated that. Some of them kind of were just like, well, I'm not into that hardcore messaging, but I identify as just, someone on the left and someone for the working class. It's really hard to kind of step out and to even think in a different way, or be able to listen to someone who has a different perspective. So for a long time, I wanted to just hear the same. I didn't want to be challenged, because I thought, well, they don't know what they're talking about. Because you think you know everything, especially when you're young, and especially when you have a worldview that teaches you that anything that anyone tells you is propaganda. And that, the reason why they're saying this, even though it might be something true, is it's all twisted up in their propaganda, and they don't really understand, what the working class needs, or what we're trying to do. So it wasn't until I was older and a little bit more mature, and you're just around other people, that I was just like, let me hear out, like, I'm experiencing things in different ways. And I think what I learned about myself in that transition is that I was always anti-authoritarian, and I was always anti-war. And I think seeing that switch, especially under the Obama administration, where a lot of leftists who were very much anti-war, who were very much anti-authoritarian, really they shut up, and um, they stopped clamoring. They stopped talking about that. And it's like, wait a minute. So because we have the first African American president, he's still the president. Like, he's still expanding the war theater. Like, he's still signing these bills that are bad. And it really was just like, wait a minute, like, what's going on? And so for me, that's when I kind of started seeing a shift, in that hypocrisy. But it allowed me to step back and say, well, what is it that I really agree with?